Welcome to the Crossing the Pond podcast, hosted by me, Gary Adair, where each week our guests will recount their own experiences of resilience and transformation, whether it's moving to a new country, tackling health challenges, changing careers, or breaking through personal barriers.
In this week's episode, we'll take a look back to the early summer of last year, and episodes 21 through 30. Some top guests with plenty of stories and loads of different perspectives. I hope these reflections on past episodes will jog memories of the guests we've had, or to our newer listeners, maybe spark an interest to dig into our back catalogue. Please remember to like, follow, or subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for listening to this episode, and I hope you enjoy. Cheers. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you. Excited. I'm terrified of hearing my own voice, but...
Well, maybe we can just send it to everybody and then not listen to it yourself, and then people can tell you that it was really good.
All right, sounds good.
So, how did you find yourself over in the US?
So, I was born with citizenship.
Okay.
Yeah, so my dad was in the American Navy when I was born, so I was considered an American born abroad. It was like something I bragged about at school all the time. Like, if anything happened in America in the news, I'd be like, going to school, waiting for attention, like, oh, what did you think of that? Acting all sad and stuff. I'd be like, well, I'm half American, aren't I? So it's a big deal for me. So I knew I had that. I knew I was really lucky to have it. So I thought I wanted to try it one day.
Yeah.
But I always need a bit of a shove.
Right.
Enter John Dunnington.
Yeah, well, yeah. If anyone's going to give it to you, it's him.
Yeah. So we came on holiday to New York just after Christmas. That's when we decided to give it a try. One of the things I remember is we were dead excited to try all the food off TV.
Like what?
Like corn dogs, Eggos, like...
Oh my God.
Exactly. But we were excited.
Okay, fair.
Very excited. So, like, we got into our Airbnb that we booked. Then, like, we're not going Asda anymore, are we? We're not going the whoopsie aisle. Like, we're going to Walmart, doing the big shop. Like, never have been to Walmart since then now, but, like, then that's where we thought we're going to shop.
Yeah.
Go to Walmart, get an Uber there, and, like, fill the trolley with, like, all the frozen crap. Like I say, Eggos, the whole TGI's line, the stuff that you would never touch now. But, like, I think we spent about $300 on it. Got it all back, like, mega excited to have this buffet of American food, like, cook it all, tuck into it. Absolutely vile. Absolutely disgusting.
Spent the next 2 weeks on the toilet or something.
So food was a big one for us. Being more serious though, like one of the ththings I noticed was just how big it is here. And all the places you hear off TV is so like casual to everyone here to go hop on a plane. Oh yeah, we're just going to hop to Miami. No big deal. It's like getting a bus here. I had an interview the day after we landed for a job, and they interviewed me, got me in the job within like a week, rang me up and was like, right, we want you to start your first week. They were like, we're sending you to Miami. I was like, yeah, sure. We're going to Miami. Yeah. But yeah, there I am.
Train ticket.
Yeah.
Half an hour down the road.
They send me on the plane. Yeah, get there, get like the Ocean Borees at this 5-star spa resort. This is just a bit different than the welcome I got at Pizza Hut, you know?
Like,
I think when we first moved out, I was back a lot. Like, we've got a friend who works for an airline, so we take full advantage of that. So I think I was back for the first couple of years about 3 or 4 times a year, which was insane. But it fell on like people getting married, like hen do's, big birthdays, so stuff that I felt I needed to be back for. And girls' holidays as well. At that point, we were still going on girls' holidays. One of my things is being there for people for important stuff. Like I do, and that's something that I feel I need to do. So one girl's wedding, I flew in. Landed in the morning, did my tan in Manchester Airport toilet cubicle, went to the wedding. It looked great, right? Went to the wedding, got changed at a friend's house, got drunk, and had an Uber pick me up for the airport again at 4 a.m.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like, still in my wedding outfit, like, I was so drunk. Like, I had a work phone and a personal phone, and getting out the Uber at Manchester Airport, dropped them both without realising. They got run over by the Uber. Turning around, still in my dress. Classy like that, you know. I think when we first moved out, I felt like I had to keep this big network of friends. And it wasn't huge, but there was more friends than I have now. And I felt like I had to see everyone.
Yeah.
And it shifts that perspective a little bit. I think you just learn to understand which relationships you value and the people that are putting the effort in as well. So
definitely.
To some extent that changes your perspective a little bit. Like even when we were looking for apartments around here, one of the apartments we liked was in 63 Wall Street, and I was like, my friend's going to send me mail to Wall Street. Like, what? I'm like, Ralph has had in places that a lot of people can't even imagine going.
What's the purpose of the Tipsy Trainer?
To teach people to navigate their goals around their social life. So, like, how can we get you to where you want to be without having to give up everything?
Yeah.
Because especially this area is so social. You know, people are out for happy hours all the time. It's not like back home. Like, back home, it's like weekend warrior, Saturday, Sunday. Probably just Saturday now. You're going to be out, and then that's it. You're done for the week. But here, it's so social. So that's my purpose, is to help women just navigate that whole social life. Sometimes they'll message me at 8:30 in the morning, like, oh, I need to cancel today. I'm hungover. I'm like, so am I. Like, let's go. We're going, you know, like, so relatable. I'm not going to preach. I think because I've been on my own journey as well, there's so many fitness people who've never had to lose weight. And that doesn't mean they're not a good trainer. They are. But I think for me, I specialize in weight loss. And when you are going through weight loss, you need someone who can empathize with you, because if you've never been in the position where you're binging a packet of, I was going to say Jaffa Cakes, but nobody knows what Jaffa Cakes is over here. Well, the Brits do.
Yeah, so. No, don't worry.
So the supreme biscuit / cake, depending on what side you're on.
Go on, biscuit.
Oh, yeah, I am.
Wait, biscuit?
Yeah, it's biscuit. I rambled then, so I don't know.
No, go on. That stays.
So, yeah, just being...
Favourite thing you miss from home?
Food, chippy.
Chippy. So what's your go-to from the chippy?
Cheese and onion pie, chips, peas, gravy. Is that pie dinner? Yeah.
Proper Blackpool, that. Cheese and onion pie. I can't disagree with you, though. Do you believe in ghosts?
No, but also equally terrified of them. Not even like real ghosts, but like if I watch The Grudge or The Ring or something, then I believe that thing is going to come get me.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
Celine Dion.
Serious?
Yeah, I love Celine.
Oh my God. Absolutely. No? Thank God.
Absolutely smashed and just got on the stool and gave the whole bar a show with Celine Dion.
All right, favourite US city?
Vegas.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why? What would yours be?
Understand every language. I don't know if it's a superpower more than a skill, but I do like it.
I mean, that's achievable.
Imagine speak every language.
That'd be cool.
But, all right. Best tipsy purchase?
Something I bought when I'm drunk.
Mm-hmm.
One time I bought Guitar Hero when I was drunk. My housemate bought it. Turned up the next morning, but we'd forgot about it. I mean, my productivity levels were not great for the next week. Oh, it was so good. Also purchased saxophone when I was smashed.
Can you play saxophone?
I tried it, so it came and I was like, well, I guess we're doing this now. It was a goal of mine for a while. And then tried it when we were in Vantage Building.
Yeah.
So I went in like the cinema room because I was like, oh, it's padded, it'll be noise protected. Learned like a little riff to Justin Bieber because it was easy to learn. Into it, was dead made up with myself, and then the woman came up from downstairs and said someone had complained, so it put me off. So I sold it.
Damn it. Vegas or Blackpool?
Vegas.
Interesting.
Vegas always. Blackpool.
Really? Come on. The Tower?
Oh, the Tower.
4 rooms. The big one. Sandcastle. Love Sand.
Sandcastle is great.
Oh.
I want people to go to the Pleasure Beach with me every time I'm home, and no one will go.
See, I'm starting to think you like Blackpool more than Vegas, I'll be honest, the more you think about it. And last but not least, what is your favourite dinosaur? That is a Triceratops tattooed onto your finger. Brilliant. That's absolutely quality. Genny, thank you so much, mate. It's been brilliant. Appreciate it. Cheers.
And there was an English kid on the team whose father worked for FedEx, headquartered in Memphis, and he was a Liverpool supporter. So he told me all about Liverpool, and this was in the 70s. So he told me about Liverpool. He told me about the Merseyside Derby. He told me about, Rangers and Celtic. I mean, he told me all of these stories. But I really think the thing that first grabbed my attention was that he told me that Nottingham Forest were the champions of Europe. And I thought, what does that mean? Like, I don't even know champions of Europe. Like, which continent has a championship? And then it was, there's a team called Nottingham Forest. That doesn't make sense either. Like, I was used to tigers and falcons and bears and all of that. And I was like, what does this mean, Nottingham Forest? So it just, to me, the soccer was the game and it was fun to play. But through that, I began to understand that there was this entire world out there that I had no idea about. And I just decided then and there that someday I will explore that world. I'm going to go. The accent thing was funny. Maybe on my first trip, my friend came to pick me up at Heathrow, and we were in a lift. These two guys got in and were talking to each other. When they got out, I asked her what language that was, and she just laughed and laughed. She said they're from Newcastle. I didn't understand a word that they said. That was kind of my introduction. But accents, yeah, that is one thing that, we have different accents in the U.S., but not from 50 miles away from each other. I mean, the difference between Manchester and Liverpool still amazes me. Those are cities that are an hour apart. For a while, I was actually pretty good at picking out accents. I could try to guess where people were from, but that is one part of it. But that is also related to your concept of space and distance that is totally unlike in America, of course. I mean, how many times have I heard a broadcast and they say, fair play to these Sunderland supporters for traveling 200 miles to support their team today? And I'm like, 200 miles? I'm a Portland Timbers fan, and we have a local derby with Seattle who's 170 miles away. So, yeah.
What is it about walking into a stadium for the first time that captures you?
First is just my curiosity to see what it looks and sounds and feels like, especially if it's an older place. I'm just always amazed and charmed by the older stadiums. But then also just the opportunity at any given time in a stadium, at a game, something memorable is going to happen that day. Sometimes it is truly memorable and something that people will be talking about for years to come. And you just never know. It's like opening up a package, like a gift that comes, and you don't really know what's going to be in there. And you never know when that 4-3 game is coming along. Just as you never know, you might go to a stadium that you dreamed about forever, and it's going to rain sideways and finish 0-0. You just don't know. It's just a great curiosity to see what it's going to be today.
What are some of the pre-match rituals or traditions that you've A, observed and B, taken part in while attending these games?
It's funny. They don't seem to do a lot of organized pregame rituals. It's going to the pub. Like in the States, somebody's going to have a march through the streets or something like that. And in Europe, you see a lot of that too. No, in England, it's just sort of, you just go to the pub. Mainly what I like to do is I have a tradition of walking around the ground. And of course, I go and pop into different pubs because, of course, I have to do my research for the book and for the website and everything. Check out the atmosphere in the pubs. And also try to learn some songs, which is easier to do in person. Although, even then, I've been on trains with drunken people from Lancashire and had no idea what they were singing. They were 5 feet away from me, and I couldn't tell. And Scottish people. I saw Scotland play England once at Wembley in a World Cup qualifier, and those people, wow. I was down in Trafalgar Square, and I don't know what that is. It was a lot of fun, though. Now, that's one thing I watch for, though, is that if there's a League Cup or any kind of cup final, any big event where some fan base is coming to London, they will at least try to take over Trafalgar Square. And so that's where I'll go. If Sunderland are in a cup final, get yourself to Trafalgar Square the night before and just see what happens. To find myself going to Barnsley, for example, and no reason necessarily to go to Barnsley, but I am a keen walker, as you would say. I love a hike, and so I love a long trail. So I'm walking over, forgot the name of the place, but the stadium there in Barnsley, and
Oakwell.
The Oakwell, thank you. I knew it had an oak in it. And I come across a sign that says the Pennine Way. And I'm like, oh, well, I know about the Pennine Way. So now I understand a little bit more about how places are connected. Like I could walk from here to Huddersfield, I think, on the Pennine Way. Like that's a fun thing to know. And the people in Barnsley were genuinely charmed and mystified that I had showed up to watch them play. And so, you have these fun conversations and you learn what is the thing to eat in this place. And you learn about all these little cultures and you read up on the history of the place and they used to make chairs in Wickham. Okay, I never would have known that. And so they're the chair boys. You learn English culture through football. Some of the nicest people I've met were at Millwall. Just really had a good time chatting with them and having a good, just good, honest, down-to-earth people. And then another time I was there and I didn't know the background on this one at all. I did not know Ian Holloway had been there, that he had come from Crystal Palace, which was bad enough, that he'd gotten relegated to League One, which made it worse, and then he left. I didn't know any of this. Can I curse on this program, by the way? If I'm going to tell the Millwall story, I should.
If it fits the narrative, then absolutely.
All right. So they come out and they're playing Queen's Park Rangers with Ian Holloway as the manager, and I didn't know the significance of that, but they come out and they sing their Rockin' All Over the World song, and they sing their Millwall song, Let 'em come, we'll all come down to the den, and I'm like, this is fun. And then they stop, and then they all start singing, Ale, 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 you you 20,000 people going on about this. And I was like, who or what is Ollie and why are we all calling him a? And it lasted the whole night. And it turns out during the game, people are explaining to me in incredibly profane language, most of which I understood, why he was such a person and why we needed to curse him for the entire night. And it was nothing like I've ever experienced in my life, you know. So that's like the Millwall story. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, that's one of the first questions a lot of Americans ask me, our clients at Groundhopper Guides, like, is it going to be okay? Can I take my kids? Like, is my elderly grandfather going to be okay? And I'm like, yes, it's going to be fine. Look, if you want to experience that kind of stuff, I can tell you where to go look for it, but there's less and less of it all the time.
At what point did you decide the football was going to be something that you wanted to push further? And did it start with the guides as a journal, or was it like, I've got this idea, I want to try and put this into play, and then the journal also went hand in hand with it?
It started as a book idea. My career was in newspapers and then freelance travel writing, and then guidebooks, travel books, hiking books, that kind of thing. So my brain was just trained to look for things that I could write about. That day at Arsenal, literally, that first game, I thought, well, here's something that Americans know that they're interested and they enjoy watching it on television, but they have no idea what it's like to be here in the stadium, much less how to get into the stadium, much less what are these people singing? Why are the Arsenal fans singing about Tottenham when they're playing Aston Villa? Just literally questions like that I thought, here, since my initial impulse was to go explore this world, the way my brain works is like, now that I've explored it, I need to write it down and share it with people. I think it has given me, well, for example, in going to, say, Portland Timbers games, you hear people use an expression that they don't really know where it came from. Like, I know where that came from, So you can start to piece together these strands of history. Or like one time, for example, I was in Wigan and I did some research on the history of Wigan and found out about, what did they call it? The sounds of the North. Well, there was a musical movement there, like a musical and dance movement.
Oh, Northern Soul.
80s. Northern Soul. Well, the Timbers Army in Portland sits in the north end of the stadium, and they put up a tifo one time with the North End Soul and a picture of a 45 RPM disc and everything. And the people sitting around me are like, oh, that's cool. I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is a deep, deep cut cultural reference here. Like, I can't believe 50 people in the stadium even know what that means, but somebody in the Timbers Army knew to put that together. So yeah, I could not have found Wigan on the map. I had no idea. But doing that research, going there, asking people where I should go for a pie, because I find out that Wigan is famous for pies. First of all, everybody said, oh, you got to get a pie. Everybody said this. And so, all right. So I forget where they sent me. It was right on the high street there between the two train stations. And I went in there and she asked me if I wanted in a bar. And I was like, it's already a pie. Like, why would you put it in the middle of a piece of bread? And then she asked if I wanted it pea wet. Isn't that the phrase? Pea wet.
Oh, disgusting. It's like this whatever's left at the bottom of the bowl of peas. It's disgusting. And people love it. I can't stand it.
Yeah. Every little step along the way is a gateway into something deeper and broader. And so you just gain a better appreciation for what's going on around you. And people will, the whole idea of place and culture, and it's like you begin to understand that 95% of us is the same. The other 5% that is culture, history, language, fashion, food, whatever it is, that stuff is really interesting. But fundamentally, if you sit down at a table to eat with somebody, you are just eating with that person, and you can get to know that person, and you will find through lines that run through England, France, Argentina, Wisconsin, wherever you go, right? People are not the same everywhere, but we are largely the same. Sort of laugh at the same things and enjoy the same things. In a lot of places, especially outside the United States, as we tell people, like, football is probably the international language. If you want to connect with people in a place, you can probably do pretty well getting to know about the local football club. So, for example, going to a game in Spain, my Spanish is not very good. I can get through a meal and stuff, and I'm working on it. But when the Real Sociedad fans stand up and sing a song, like, I don't have any idea. I guess what happens is that you begin to focus more on what we have in common, and you don't worry so much, or I don't Like I may have preconceived notions about what the Basque country is, just to go with that example. And then I go there and I learn what the actual Basque country is like. And so you learn every time you let go of those stereotypes and those preconceived notions, it gets easier to do. And you just sort of, after a while, think, well, okay, I'm going to go to France, and I have no idea what France is actually like until I'm going to go there and meet those folks. And even then, I won't know what France is like. I'll just know what the people I met in that part of France are like. You just sort of let go of what you think you know, and then you become much more curious and excited to find out anything new.
First question, favorite British food item or meal?
At a game or just in general?
Just in general.
There's a place on the Curry Mile in Manchester called Almadeira. I asked about 10 cab drivers in town where I should go, and they all said Almadina. So there you go. Go in there and get the karahi.
Favorite stadium that you've been to that no longer exists?
I guess the old White Hart Lane. Oh, no, I take it back. No, the Boleyn ground. I got to say Upton Park. Forget it. Sorry.
Not only have you gone to West Ham, but you've also knocked off Tottenham to go to West Ham.
Tottenham was fun. I saw them beat Chelsea, and I was down behind the goal next to the Chelsea people. That was exciting. But as a stadium goes, yeah, the old West Ham can't be beat.
The best player you've seen live?
I guess the answer has to be Franz Beckenbauer, because I saw him play back in the 70s, but I didn't really appreciate it at the time. I saw Messi at Barcelona in his prime. When you see Messi in person at Barcelona, that's something.
Most random food item that you've bought at a concession stand?
I went to FC United of Manchester, and they gave me what they called a Lancashire kebab, which I think was a pie on a roll.
What are the most tourist-friendly club or clubs?
Fulham, without a doubt, especially for Americans. I don't know how many Americans there must be in the Riverside stand at Fulham on any home game. There's a lot of them. It's a nice part of town. It's right by the river.
What is the best or funniest chant that you've heard at a game?
Oh, I saw somebody lose at Northampton Town 4-0, which is an accomplishment in itself. And the Northampton fans began singing, "You're and you know you are." And the other fans, after a while, I could still see them over there in that unfinished stand on the far side with the rain pelting down on them. And you hear this kind of meek chant come back that says, "We're and we know we are." This is the most English thing I've ever seen in life, you know.
That's brilliant. To be fair, one of the biggest reasons I want to get you in is because your story draws a lot of comparisons with mine. Aside from the fact you're a little bit taller than me and you've got a touch more hair on your head. Not for long. When I met you back in the day, it was obvious that we both love footy. You know, we could play a little bit. You were definitely a little bit better than me. But I think you'll agree if I say that we've always had this overwhelming desire to be involved in footy.
For sure.
And I'd say early on our paths paralleled a little bit. You know, we both worked for larger trainer companies. So we had our own little groups and didn't really mix. And then we met, a couple of years later, played on the same team. So talk a little bit about how you landed over here and how it was for the first few years.
Yeah, so my story goes back to I played in Northern Ireland, did a little bit of coaching there with a company called Maiden City Soccer, which then took me to sport development, phys ed. I did that over in Liverpool John Moores. On my campus, the owners of USA were there one random day, and I kind of went for an interview off the cuff, to be honest. So that kind of landed me here in New Jersey. That's the short of it. What's that, 20 years, 2004?
Was there anything early on where either on your end or on other people's ends where the misunderstandings came into play?
Well, quick thing, you know, like bibs and pennies, right? Yeah. When we're coaching, I just couldn't get my head around it. You know, it was a bib for us, and they're like, "Oh, it's a penny or a penny," and I still don't know to this day what it's called. You know, I think just the culture of how much people work over here. You know, we worked a lot when we first got here, but my dad always came to all my football matches and training and whatever. But here it was kind of like if you're not training at nighttime, you don't see the parents a lot. That was a big day-to-day kind of thing, you know. But once I got here, it was an instant crash course, and I had already coached, but an instant crash course in coaching footy and then responsibility. So that was kind of the thing I enjoyed. Yeah. You know, giving teams straight away, curriculum content, and it was a lot. It was, you think of having an appetizer and then having a meal. It's ridiculous. You box it up for 5 days. But then cooking ourselves was, I just remember me and the fellow I lived with, we always used to go to the shop and buy, you know, this big cart of food and then go to the Chinese before we get back. We're like, oh, we've done all this work, bought all this food, and then we go to the Chinese on the way home.
So how do you manage the balance of that while still having enough time to sustain yourself and have enough time for yourself and enough money as well to sort of keep yourself going?
Yeah, there's a lot of points to that. I think certainly with USA, I wouldn't be able to do it if they didn't trust me to take on additional projects, side jobs. it started with, a lot of graft, a lot of grind, a lot of hard work. And I worked with Justin Marriott a lot at the start. As I started getting involved in different areas within the business, I then started working with the other owners. So we got really close and they got to see, what I brought to the table. So to start with, it is having their trust that my main job, what pays the bills, USA, is not ever dipping. So I think that's a credit to them. They know that I wanted a little bit more. The biggest thing that I've come to learn about myself, work ethic from my family background, super strong, super dedicated, but also just being able to, and this is planning, right? If I'm working on it, that's it. Like everything else is blocked out until a certain period of the day. That's how I started initially. Now I'm a little bit more, it's discipline, but it's also understanding, knowing what's priority and what needs to be dealt with. So I think that, and it's a total learning curve. At the start, I was juggling a lot, trying to check all the boxes. With Drew, I was all in on every single project. Now I know where my worth is on the training pitch and recruiting players. I get involved in spreadsheets and volunteer work and fundraising, but we've kind of categorized where the strengths are and where, if I have only so much time, where's the best place to put it?
Yeah.
Nobody likes surprises, so I find that I'm so advanced in planning. And I'm talking about work here strictly. Me and my missus have been together now 9-10 years. She's good at planning the social life. I'm awful at it. And I think things will be, we'll get there or we'll figure it out. But it just comes around very quickly. But in terms of work, I'm so planned that I can tell. And again, an example of it, USL2 this year, I was doing my B license in Minnesota during, that winter, spring, and into the tail end of the summer.
Jesus.
So I had to plan that in advance with Tom, telling him, it can be here, it can be here. I wasn't around as much as I would like, but the fact that I was able to plan it and
then he can then on the knock
he was able to pivot and plan and bring other people in. So it doesn't make it any easier, but people don't like surprises. So as long as you lay the expectation, I think that's the best thing. I know certainly with family and friends, right? I know, for example, the small friend circle that I'm really tight to, they know that they can get me whenever, no matter how busy we are, if they need something. And that's the same with family, but you get to figure out everyone's path, right? I'll call some people on the way to work because I know they're up at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
This morning, where I didn't have this full book of meetings, I was kind of a little bit more flexible. So I was able to chat to lads. One of the lads just had a kid, so I know he's at home looking after the kid. It's just knowing when to get people. For family, my brother's so immersed in his 2 young boys at the minute, so he doesn't know what day it is. At home, my dad's a little sick at the moment. My mom's going through some stuff, so speaking to her and supporting her is key as well.
Yeah. And
just knowing time difference, I could get up and just call her. Like literally, I get out of bed, I'm making the coffee, I'll call my mother. It's just finding the right window to connect with people back home. I said I'll try and talk about it, but here we go. Yeah, we lost a close friend of ours in 2016. At the time, he was under me at USA. It was my go-to person. He passed away, and he's from Scotland. And just that process, that made me grow up super quick.
Yeah.
What are we now? That's nearly 10 years. That's crazy.
Jeez.
That is 10 years. So lived here in an apartment on his own, obviously passed away, heart condition. And from that point forward, it was like all he knew was USA, right? He worked for USA for all that time. So the ownership group was amazing. Couldn't say anything more about it. They had probably gone through stuff like this before. I hadn't. So I kind of just kicked into, his parents were in Scotland. Long story short, his entire getting his body home, getting his apartment cleaned out, getting his finances in order, getting his funeral arranged, it was all on me and his elderly parents. But at that time, I just found real friends stepping up to the plate. We had a lot to do and we divided and conquered. We all just grabbed the roles that I just mentioned and that was tough. It was tough. And at the time, work didn't matter.
Yeah.
The company they gave me a 4 or 5 months, just do whatever you can and whatever you can, what you can, when you can. So that was a challenge. It brought, emotions, feelings, responsibilities that I probably never want to experience again, but probably will, But what did that do? It brought me closer to a lot of people. It brought me closer probably to my own family. We have that golf event. I don't know
you do every year, right?
We ran a golf event until COVID. We ran it first year and it was amazing success. All the football industry, clients, coaches, people from years back that have all, coached with them.
Yeah.
And then year 2, we ended up raising enough money and we donated to a Top Soccer here in New Jersey because he worked not with Top Soccer, but something similar in Scotland. We donated to his college that worked with kids with disability in Scotland, and we also put a couple of dollars away. And we flew his parents out as guest of honor that next year. I call them every Christmas. I call them often.
Yeah.
And I say them, I call his mom now, but every Christmas I'll call him. My mom's like, "What are you doing?" It's brought me closer to my family.
Yeah.
You know,
Gives you, I mean, it definitely gives you a massive piece of perspective. Why do you think you've stayed so long?
I think I've continued to seek out or be given challenges. The opportunities for growth here, I don't think we would have had back home. It's just not my path. I'm not saying it's not the right path, but friends of mine have different jobs that they've stayed in. Some of them are in coaching, some of them are not. But they're kind of doing what I'm doing in Motown on a part-time basis with a real full-time job.
Yeah.
And what is a real full-time job? You know, I think I could go into different industries and be successful. You just don't know. It's an unknown.
Yeah.
So I think that there's definitely something here that you can keep growing and keep grabbing different opportunities. Reflected on my pathway, I think it's more about putting yourself out there, volunteering, right? Which everyone values time so much these days.
Yeah.
I don't think any good organization or any good head coaches or any good programs would turn down good help, especially if it's free.
Yeah.
Or if it's low cost. Make yourself valuable. With here, when I got to Drew, I was scouting. They didn't do scout reports with videos, and I kind of brought it up to speed with a modern player. And Lenny saw his value. The player saw his value. So when the next door opened, it was me to take
Walk in, yeah.
That's one of the main things, is just be open to diving in and helping. And even with the coaching courses, like young coaches come and watch your USL2 sessions where you lads are delivering. They're not gonna affect your session as long as they're observing and they're professional. So I think that's in the coaching world, is go and watch different people. They might need you, especially if you're a value add, they'll find a role for you.
You've got to put your time in, haven't you?
Some
people want too much too soon, and they don't have the experience to carry it.
If you think back to how we all did it, and it's not saying that we did it, we're not coaching the pros or anything, but we've all probably said, "Oh, I'd love to be here." It's a pipe dream of where you want to get to. You got to put in some steps.
Yeah.
And the steps might be the ugly steps where you have to volunteer, you have to do the grind. But it's totally right. Everyone asks me, how did I get involved with Drew? And it's that story. I volunteered. I think that would be a big takeaway, is just give some time before you're asking for something.
Al, thanks very much for today, mate. I really appreciate the time. It's been quality. Before you go, a couple of quick fires for you, mate.
Oh, no.
You're knackered here. You've got no notes. You've had no time to plan. First one, easy one. Crisps or chocolate?
Chocolate all day. Look at my teeth.
Any particular shout out?
Dairy milk all the time.
The one superpower, what would it be?
I'd love to know what people are thinking.
Oh, dangerous that, you know.
It probably is dangerous. I'm staying with it. Imagine that coaching. Oh, Gary's going to 4-5-1 here. He's going to sit there.
Oh, God. What about football?
I thought about that the other day too. Maybe trends in the stock market. That'd be a cracker.
Oh, that would be good. But that's more like, I'll be going buying a lottery ticket.
Go at a penny and look at what's at now.
Outside the family, biggest thing you miss from back home?
It's probably the local pubs, the pub culture. Very different here, especially where I'm at, outside of the city. Basking Ridge doesn't have that many pubs. Everything's like, would you like a seat, sir?
Which player would you compare yourself to?
They say John McGinn because he's left-footed and he's got a fat arse. But I think they mean he's got a fat belly too. John McGinn, they say.
John McGinn?
I would say that. That's what other people say.
No, I got to take your first answer there, Al.
So I came for love.
Okay.
I had no real desire to be in England. Quite a long story of why I came here. Do you want me to get into that?
By all means. I did actually listen to your podcast that you did with your business partner, Helen, right?
Yeah.
Helen, as you work with.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you met your now husband in Vegas.
Yeah. So we met in Vegas. What happens in Vegas didn't stay in Vegas, obviously, because I'm here now, married to him. But we met on a week. It was a bachelor party, but it was called a stag do. But I didn't know that term before. That's the bachelor party name in England. And I was there with just my girlfriends because the youngest one had turned 21. We're all 21. Let's go to Vegas. Met him there. And that was like a whirlwind romance type of thing. And then I wanted to go after university, after I finished college in the States, and wanted to study fashion. So it was either going to be LA or go grad. And then I thought, well, I'll go to London because I'm at the side, maybe it'll work. And so I had like another reason in case it really went parachute type of thing.
Yeah.
It didn't. It went well. And then we did long distance. And then eventually when I moved properly in 2012, he had proposed. And we were long distance for like 2 years or something when I was in San Francisco. And he was in Cambridge. And then, when he proposed, I kind of thought, I can move over there and get a job and work there. And it was all like a big adventure.
How was it when you first got? What did you love about England when you first got there? Aside from, your now husband, obviously, was there any examples of things that you really loved when you got there?
I really liked how much people drank tea and ate cake at like all different times of the day.
It's not just a
Like
stereotype.
cake was something. No, it's true. It is. And I was like, cake is on offer at like every cafe, and I really liked that. People are always offering you a cup of tea. Everyone always had time for a biscuit. I really enjoyed that kind of, I guess maybe ultimately that kind of slower pace. People just take it a little bit more time. I did really like.
What about Britishisms? I don't even know if that's a word that you struggle. Was there anything that you struggled
Yeah.
to get your? Was there anything you struggled to get your head around early on?
The big one was pants, because that's awkward because it is pants is not pants is trap. Okay, pants now confusing myself. Underwear is pants,
Okay.
right? So, but pants is trousers. So when you're talking about, oh, I got new pants, they think you're talking about your underwear. So that's awkward. And that did happen. Like, I think I was buying yoga pants and that was confusing.
That must be a southern thing because I just say undies. I don't know.
Also, like I noticed at the end of people's sentences, there was a lot of, isn't it? Like, it was like a question, like, oh, it's a great day, isn't it? This is a really good piece of cake, isn't it? Like, there's a lot of that question afterwards. I'm like, not like the statement, like, this is great. I didn't get a chance to kind of like make my own circle of friends and find like my people. So that was difficult. So early on, I created like a meetup group called Americans in Cambridge because I was like, I don't have any friends who are like me. And I didn't, as much as all of these people that knew now, like their partners, because now would have his friends guys and then they'd have partners. And as much as the partners would make an effort, it wasn't like we were like clicking. I mean, I've been fortunate to have like a really lovely sister-in-law and I have really lovely cousin-in-law, I guess is what it is. But that's like family, you know what I mean? It's different when you like make your adult friendships. So anyway, so I was like, I'm gonna start this group and I started Americans in Cambridge meetup groups so I could meet other Americans to kind of feel like I wasn't alone. And I wasn't a part of the university, the Cambridge University, so I didn't meet anyone through there. There was lots of military people. I wasn't in any community. I was just like a floating person. So I did that and to try and make friends. And nobody came to my first meetup group. So then I just pretended like it was a hit and I was like, we're gonna do another one. Like, make sure you make it. And then it grew and grew. And there was like loads of members in the end. I ended up like giving it to somebody. But I basically kind of signed off once I'd met like 2 friends from it. But that was kind of like, my first making my own friends and stuff. I feel like when you move somewhere and you're not a part of a community, it is tough and you've really got to put yourself out there.
That's funny. Meet Americans in Cambridge. That's funny.
Yeah, we did have some like English people come who wanted to just meet Americans. So I was like, no, you have to be American. Like, that's not the point of this group.
At what point do you start to think about setting up Lifestyle Club?
Lifestyle Club is a members only website for wives and partners of professional soccer or football players in England, although we're not limited to England, but this is where we've started. All about wellness and resources for the partners of professional footballers, education, well-being, finances, all sorts of things. I kind of fell into it. It's very different as now, 8 years on, than it was when it started. But when I was on maternity leave, and maybe even before maternity leave, probably before maternity leave, I think to my brother-in-law, so Rick and Niall's brother, and Niall and his best mate, Drury and Helen, we were talking about like different things about wives and partners of footballers. And I think Adam had just retired from playing because he had been playing. He played for Norwich for a really long time. I don't know when he retired. Was he at like Leeds or something? I don't know. But he retired from his career, and so we were kind of just talking about it. And Rika was really talking about what if there was some site with, like all of the wives and partners, and try to get like Helen on board. And I was kind of like just there. I wasn't really a part of it so much. And for me, realizing that Lifestyle Club could really be something was when we did our first kind of like focus group, and we had the wives and partners there, and we were talking about this idea of what it could be. And we didn't really know like how it would, we knew we wanted to do well-being, but we thought, are we going to do like shop discounts as well? Like we kind of had a lot of ideas, and it really stood out that the wives and partners felt really overlooked and that they didn't have enough resources and they didn't really feel prepared necessarily for the position. And then we got support early on from Delia Smith, one of the owners of Norwich Football Club. We met with her and she was like, yeah, you should do this. And she introduced us to like Gordon Taylor, who was PFA. And I think to have kind of big people, someone like Delia, and then also someone like people who felt really like had kind of been through different experiences.
Yeah.
To get you behind you, like, you know, one really public figure, but then, you know, somebody who's like in my life a lot, and then like my husband and my husband's best friend and my friend Helen. I think that really helped kind of like propel it, and then see that the wives and partners really needed it. So it was like the belief and then the need, and then we're like, yeah, this is gonna work. But it did take a long time.
How do you think that your big move from the US helped you empathize or sympathize with the clients that you had, especially early on, to get you a little bit of a foothold and have and people to believe you and buy into what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think that's also why I probably fell more into lifestyle club, like the capacity that I'm in it now, is because when we started to meet with the football clubs, one of the pieces of content on the site that I was like, well, this would be really helpful for people who are new here, was like the different grocery stores. Like, what is Aldi and Lidl and Waitrose and Tesco? Because I came here and had no idea who all the different various grocery stores were, which doesn't really, you know, necessarily matter, but it's helpful information if you're like from Brazil and you want to know where you can get food from, like spices that you want to cook your dishes, like which has the best world food section and things like that. You know, where's the organic? And I remember thinking, where do I get this kind of baby food? And I'm going to go to different places. So that piece of content, I remember being a really big sell for the clubs that then supported us. So like, oh gosh, that would be really important. So I think it was like my perspective coming here and not knowing anything that helped when it came to having wives and partners from other countries join and the club's support.
I wish I'd have had some advice when I first moved over here so I could find out where the brown sauce was in ShopRite, but I didn't have it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but that kind of stuff can really make you feel like settled. And I think that nowadays, I feel like people are more like understanding of that kind of like, I don't know if it's like a mental health aspect, but in a sense of just feeling like there's some bit of home near you, and it can just be like a bottle of sauce that makes you feel like, oh, a little taste of home. Mm-hmm. We went to Man City. And there was, I think it was when Pep just got in, and we saw him offered us a drink or something. I don't know. I literally just like don't understand. Like I didn't know these people, but it helped in a way because we weren't there for that. You know, we were there to just like tell them about this resource that was going to help their new players from Portugal or whatever. You know, like it wasn't about any of that. I remember, I went to one club with my baby. Because I was breastfeeding, so I had to take. I'm pretty sure it was Sebastian, my youngest one, and we were at Brighton Football Club or something. It was like, gotta take my kid. I'm so sorry. Whether you're a teacher or you're a stay-at-home mom or you work in an office, I think it's important to know that that's just one aspect of you, and there's so much more to you, and there's so many other things you need to look after as a person to feel fulfilled and not let one thing be everything. And I feel like that relates to anybody, especially if you're really good at something or something takes a lot of your time, just to make sure you make room in your life for the other things so that you don't feel so bad when that one thing, you have a bad day at that one thing, it's not going well.
Cadbury's or Hershey's? Correct answer. Now I know that me and you are speaking the same language. What is your favorite cake?
I'll say Victoria sponge cake.
Family excluded, what do you miss most about the US?
I miss the ocean, the beaches.
That's fair. San Francisco as well. It's a pretty big draw. Best city for a night out in the UK?
Oh, London.
Are you an aggressive dancer?
Yes. Why do you know that? Do you know that? No. Oh.
I know.
Up here. Really cool way.
Okay, I can only imagine. Like, I don't even want to get into it. What song are you singing on a karaoke?
Don't Stop Believing.
Oh, yeah, okay, Genny.
See, you can be really aggressive with that one.
stumbled into America by the way of being quasi-engaged to a Dutch girl in London.
Okay.
I was 19, 20. She was 18, and she was up King's Road one day, and she said, let's get engaged. I said, fine. You know, and I bought a Russian wedding ring, and if it was £5, it was a lot of money. We were just two kids playing around, really. We didn't know. I've been going out for maybe a year and a half, 2 years. Her dad came home and said, hey, guess what? They want me to go to America. And the wife said, well, I can't go without the daughter. And quite literally, the daughter said, I can't go without the boyfriend. So the boyfriend said, oh, I guess. Yeah,
So you
let's
just
go.
went along for the ride?
Yeah, and they sent a furniture van to pick up my records and a few odds and ends and my clothes and that, and went to America.
What year was that?
That was, they left right before Christmas. I wanted my last Christmas in England. So I left on the day before New Year's Eve, 1979.
Wow. So that's a good 40.
In 1980, English people were pretty few on the ground.
Right.
So I was an oddity. I was something special. I didn't fully realize it at the time, but they looked after me. They knew I was here alone. And because it was a family company, they made sure I was okay.
Yeah.
And I found some of my best friends to this day during that period.
Do you find that to be a big quality? Maybe not so much nowadays, but again, probably still nowadays. Like the Americans are quite a welcoming sort of people.
Most definitely. I think Americans are very generous of spirit. You got to temper that, I guess, with we are again an oddity here.
Yeah.
You know, and not so much anymore because there's a lot more English people over here. But at the time, it was sort of rare. This girl, Shari, introduced me to her ex-boyfriend, who was like the greatest guy I'd ever met up to that point, insofar as he knew music. He dyed his hair black. He was an artist. He was very cool. And he started coming over to my apartment, and he'd bring a strobe light and some dope, and we'd just sit around talking. One day, I said to him, hey, the Stranglers are playing in Dover. I said, I can't believe it, but they're playing in Dover. I've seen them 3 or 4 times, been up stage, dancing with them and stuff. We should go. I was a little high at the time. I forgot I said that. So then, come the night, I've said to the new girl, we're going to go see the Stranglers. So I took her. He calls up the apartment. Says, where's Steve? He says, he's gone out. We're supposed to see the Stranglers. Friend says, I love the Stranglers. So you can imagine the scene. We walk in, there's my new girlfriend with a girl I'm living with and her ex-boyfriend. So it was a little awkward. The story went sideways then. That night after I left, John knew the backup band and they hung out after the show, drinking. Fran met the drummer. That night, they drove to Virginia and got married. Now, I go home to an empty apartment. I have no idea where she is for 4 or 5 days. Eventually, John calls me up and says, I think she got married. And not because I was jealous or anything, but it was just me and her in America.
Yeah.
And personal struggles were related to my dad.
Right.
And in many, many years later, and I'm talking 10 years ago, 8 years ago, my mother having Alzheimer's and living in a home until she succumbed to that. That was a struggle. There's guilt for not being there when your family would like to see you. Not necessarily need you, but when it would be comforting for them to be there. Mm. And, you know, a lightning strike for a week or so and come back. Maybe it helps. I don't know. That's always weighed on my mind. Oh, I don't know if this is true or not, but I would like to think in some way. I know my parents were proud I was here, but I also think my friends were proud that I was here. My first few hours in America were a little harrowing for me because all I had was an address in Morristown, and Newark weren't doing international flights in those days, so I was landing at Kennedy. And on the plane, I got talking to a girl sitting next to me. She was about my age, and I was telling her my story, and she said, oh, we live in New Jersey. My dad's coming to pick me up. Maybe he can drop you off. So I got off all my possessions. I had, money, every penny I owned. And she ran off, met her dad, talked to him. I saw him. She came back and said, no, sorry, we have to go and see an aunt first. Mm. I thought, oh, classic. So I went to an information desk and they said, well, you can take a train in. And when you get to New York, you got to walk from the Port Authority to 34th Street or something. And this was the years of Kojak. I've seen Kojak. I was pretty scared. And I didn't fancy my first trip in New York to be carrying 2 big suitcases at 9:30 at night. I didn't know how far it was. Stumbled into a limo guy. Limo guy said, Morristown, where was that? He went away, came back. $60. Oh, that's way too expensive. I'm not doing that. So then I went to the taxis, and there was central walking area and taxis on either side all lined up. And I said, I want to go to Morristown. I got out this book. He said, $57. Well, we'll take a limo for that.
Yeah.
And then another guy came out, he says, $40, and took my bag and put it in his car. This guy had my bag in the other car. So they were both in the trunks of the car. Another guy come up and said, $30. Didn't even know where I was going. Let's get me out of here. And that's when I got a little scared. I was, in my political leanings, if I had any in England, I was fairly right-wing. I have evolved to be fairly left-wing now because of inequities that I see. So that has changed me a lot. I've become a lot more tolerant person. And maybe that's part of the immigrant story. You can relate to other immigrants at that stage and sympathize with what maybe the Guatemalans are going through. Do I want the country flooded? No.
Yeah.
But at least I understand where they're coming from because, a different story, but that was me at some point, so America's changed me that way, without a doubt. We live in a nice place and my journey's been okay. It really has. I would not roll the dice again. I would not say, now you know what your life's like in America. Would you like to see your life in England? But you have to take it if you see it.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I don't think I'd do the same thing.
But I think anyone who comes across the pond is that type of person who's unafraid to walk through open doors. And I think that is a sort of soft courage I've tried to instill in my kids. Don't be afraid to try it. A couple of things I'd say to young kids is, walk through that door. You can always turn around and come back out.
Yeah.
Now don't burn the bridge walking through the door, but, explore, be brave and see. More often than not, it's very beneficial to you.
What's one thing about the US that you will never understand?
How they allow bad food to be in so many people. How they allow so much plastic. How they allow things that are so obviously wrong, like guns. And I guess I could go on that one.
We could go on all day. I don't disagree with you on any of those things as well. All right, I'll make it a little bit more light-hearted. The best place you've been to watch Chelsea play?
Madrid, which is a beautiful town.
What's your order from the curry house?
Butter chicken.
Oh, you and Paul are terrible, man. Butter chicken. What's one band you could see over and over and never get sick of?
It'd be a tough one between the Stranglers and the Clash.
The last question, mate. Who would play you in a movie?
Oh, Jesus. Some charming man, I'm sure. I'd take anyone famous, It ain't Tim, what's his name? Tim.
Which one? Timothy Chalamet?
Yeah, he's been running around Hoboken these days.
Oh, yeah, he's shooting that film down there. Yeah, it's definitely not him, Steve.
No.
Sorry, mate, no. Steve, thanks so much, mate. I really appreciate it.
I enjoyed this. Thank you, Gary.
It's been a pleasure, mate. Cheers.
All right.
Did you have any perceptions of English or British people in general before you met anybody?
I mean, no, not really, because I guess I don't really think I knew any British people before. So, I mean, I guess the only thing I might have thought about was more of just like stereotypical, super proper accents.
We all had like little blazers on
Yeah.
and shorts with socks pulled up to our knees, and we all had little hats on.
Little neckties.
Little neckties as well, yeah. Either that or we had scars on our heads and wands.
Yeah, Harry Potter was my only reference.
Exactly. How did your family and friends find Bob when you introduced them to him
Yeah.
first couple of times? Because listen, first time, anyone can go on a charm offensive. The first couple of times, was there any feedback that you got?
Well, there were just a lot of blank stares because Bob does not have the classic posh. Whenever I tell people now, like, yeah, my husband's actually from England, they're like, oh, the accent. I'm like, there's an accent. It's not the one you're thinking of. But
Yeah.
He does have an accent, especially at that time because he had just moved back from the UK. So his Northern Yorkshire accent was so thick that nobody understood what he was saying.
Yeah.
And so by a few weeks in, a month in, I had a pretty good ear for it. But even on our first couple of dates, he would say something and I would just kind of stare at him. He finally got to me. He was like, you're trying to figure out what I said. I'm like, yep, give me a minute. I almost have it.
How was your sort of integration with his family back home, like his mom and his sisters? Because obviously that's got the one son and the two sisters. How was that? How was that getting into that environment?
And the youngest son. Not only is he the only boy, he's also the baby
Prince,
of the family.
yeah.
I can't. No, great. His family is lovely and wonderful. And I love going back to England and being able to see them and spend time with them. And they live in like the sweetest little English village, which I just like adore. And they're just like such lovely hosts, and it's great. But yeah, there was one time where his two sisters came to visit us, and I forgot, Bob, I think, had been working that morning. Anyway, he came home and he had a headache, and he like flopped down on our bed, and he was like, oh, my head hurts. And I was like, okay, drink some water. And literally his two sisters just swarmed onto him, and they were like, what do you need? Do you need a glass of water? Do you need some Advil? Oh my gosh, what does he need? And I was like, I can't handle this.
You see anything different between, let's just say, English friends and American friends, for example? Like,
there's a piece of me too that's not super sure is if it's really just British friendships and British male friendships, or if it's Bob and Bob's friends.
That's fair.
So yes, when we first started dating, Bob was super affectionate with all of his friends. Hugging, kissing on the cheeks, big hugs, telling them he loved them. And that was just not something that I was accustomed to with American men, who kind of give like maybe a slap on the back and like maybe a fist bump, more broy. That's something that I've come to learn and like appreciate about Bob and his friendships, is that he's so genuine with them, and he's not going to wait. He's like, no, they're my friends. They're some of the most important people, if not the most important people besides my family in my life. Why wouldn't I express that to them? They need to know. After we moved through the stages and we were, together, I banned him from dancing. He was not allowed to dance in public unless we were at a wedding or at the Harry Monk, which was a bar we frequented often, or you guys frequented often, and then I would join you as well. And it wasn't until we moved to LA that I actually lifted the ban.
Was that just about the positivity of LA that enabled you to let him free?
At that point, it had been like 2 years. We were out somewhere where music was playing. You could tell he just really wanted to dance. To his credit, he actually didn't dance. Like, respected that boundary, which in hindsight is like so ridiculous. We ran into somebody in Hoboken one time. We were out at dinner, somebody he hadn't seen for a while. And she was like, are you still dancing? And he goes, actually, dancing has been banned. And he was like, yeah, she won't let me. And she looked at me, she was like, girl, you got to let those hips free.
There's got to have been situations where there's frustrations with whether it's financial frustrations or decisions that have happened or things that are out of his control or your control. Like, what have you done for each other, like to help each other through that?
I don't know. What do you do when your partner is upset, or if, you're just there for them as best you can? Open communication, listening, knowing who they are and what they might need. I remember now in one of our very early days, he had gotten some bad news from back at home. I was like, well, why don't you come up and come over? And I bought him like a 6-pack of Heineken, and we just sat on the couch, and I gave him a beer, and he was like, did you buy this just like for me? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, it was really nice, So you just show up and support them the best you can, knowing who your partner is and what they need. Talking and communication is key, is the number one.
Has there been anything from the differences between you, or maybe the interactions you've had with Bob and his friends back in the UK, that have given you a different perspective than maybe others who haven't experienced this or haven't had those different influences in the teaching profession? Not necessarily from an educational standpoint, but maybe how you handle situations, or do you look at things a different way because the attitude of other people that you've come across?
And one thing I love about my school is that we value other cultures, and we make it a point to celebrate and learn about other cultures. So we have families who celebrate Holi or Diwali.
Yeah.
They come in, like the families come in and they teach our kids, and we celebrate that holiday as authentically as we can. Dia de los Muertos, we have a large Latin community, and we take time to like teach the students about it. So, and not just peripherally, not like, here's the book about like, we really immerse ourselves in, try to learn as authentically about it as we can. That aspect is always important, and having these experiences of like really being immersed in somebody else's culture. But there have been times where I've been like, actually, because of something that I've learned through Bob or through going to England or through, his friends, where I'm like, some people, or in England, they do
different things, yeah.
For example, in England, they say math.
Math, oh God, yeah. That's another one. I get called for that all the time. Given the way the world is now, everything's so small, you can essentially reach out to a lot of cultures in a different way. Like, how do you value that as an educational process with the kids in your school, and not only your school, but your son's school or other schools around the country as well?
Yeah, well, I value it immensely because that's how we learn acceptance and tolerance and how we learn to appreciate differences. And so, if we aren't able to have authentic experiences within different cultures, it's really easy to get trapped in your one way of thinking or your one mindset or your one way your culture celebrates something.
Yeah.
You know, a major cultural difference in England and America around Christmas is that you guys all go to the pub on Christmas Day, right?
Yeah.
When Bob first told me this, I was like slightly horrified. I was like, you go to a bar on Christmas? I was like, no, you spend the day in pajamas. And like at the Christmas tree, I'm like, what do you mean you go to a bar? And then I got to go to England and like go to a pub on Christmas Day. And it's amazing because in America, like the pub culture in England is so different, as obviously as you know, is so different than American bars that I don't think Americans can wrap their head around what that actually means and looks like. And so my mom and I went and spent our first Christmas in England, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, we were there, and it was like one of the most fun joys because Bob's like, yeah, they're only open for 2 hours and it's all your neighborhood friends, and we come and it's about celebrating together with the people in your community.
Favorite UK delicacy?
Well, cherry bakewell's number one, and also Battenberg.
Biggest thing about the UK that you'll probably never be able to comprehend?
Oh, I know one thing. I cannot comprehend how speed limits are like 60 miles an hour on these tiny country curvy lanes. I cannot. I'm like terrified every time we're driving, and it's raining. There isn't room for two cars. And
No,
it's a
never
two-way
is.
street,
No.
and we're barreling down these curvy roads.
What's your favorite dinosaur?
T-Rex?
Correct answer.
Okay.
So I was at college at the time, Chester College. The last semester of the second year, we had to do a work placement, which could have been anywhere, people going to work in schools, working for police, working for clubs. And I had seen on the pinboard in the student union, there was a couple of companies up there. UK Elite was one, USA was another. So I reached out to them, see if I could take that work placement in the US and then stay for the summer.
For coaching?
For coaching, yeah.
Is that what you were doing at school?
It was a sports science degree.
All right, okay.
So yeah, I hooked them up with my lecturer and they talked about what that would look like, when I'd be able to fly. And there were actually two of us that took it up and came over. So I think it was the December we had it finalised and I flew out in April.
Did you get any misunderstandings? I can remember when you went on a run with a high school team one year, and for the longest time they basically got your name wrong. So a team has won a state championship and the coach wasn't Dave Prager, it was Dave Traeger.
Yeah.
Is that because you said it to it, or is that because they just mispronounced it?
I think they just mispronounced it whether it was a typo and he just ran with it, yeah.
It is more like uni, isn't it? So you've still got uni things, but being over here is a lot different. Like I got told a story about you, the 06 Cup final.
Yeah.
Staying away from the result, and Strubber's brother recorded the game for you.
Yes, which was great of him. Yeah, we couldn't get out of work. They wouldn't give me the time off, right? We didn't have enough to cover. So I ended up running this rec program on the Saturday morning. We've all come back to the house to watch it on the video. And Liz, bless her, had bought crates of beer. We're all set up. We're all ready to watch it. We're thanking Grubber's brother, like, thanks for recording it. Nice job. You sure you got it all? And he's like, yeah, I even put the another tape in for extra time and penalties. And we're like, oh. So right away, yeah, we knew we were in for a long sit-in. And then there was one of the other lads who did know the result. And so he's constantly sort of digging as we go through. What do you think of Paul Konchesky? Like, do you think he's any good? Like, they should take Gerald off, shouldn't they? He looks like he's done. So, yeah, it was a bit annoying. But.
Does that impact you early on because you feel like you are missing out on stuff? I missed loads of weddings, me. I missed my brother's wedding. I missed all the kids being born, and you just miss out on stuff because you're over here as well.
Same thing, yeah. I missed my brother's wedding because of the visa situation at the time.
Yeah.
They ended up getting one of those life-size cardboard cutouts that has a bunch of pictures of me doing all sorts at the wedding that I wasn't at.
Because how soon from when you got here did you meet Liz?
Yeah, so we met on the Memorial Day. So I came in April when we met at the end of May. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is long.
So,
yeah, that is long term.
I mean, it made life so much easier, especially seeing some struggles that some friends and colleagues had, not having that support system.
Yeah.
It was great for me. Just coming over and having a place to stay, or, having that time from when work had finished and the housing was getting shut up to, I could stay for 2-3 weeks, right? I've got
the buffer
support there. Yeah, that buffer. But I do remember the first time I met her mum and dad. We're walking up the driveway, and she said, "Oh, by the way, Dad has a problem with people that are taller than him." What am I supposed to do with that? She rings the doorbell. I'm like leaning and slouching and just trying not to
Hang on,
get
as
too
you're
close to him.
walking, how long
As
have you
we're
been together at this
walking up,
point?
yeah, this was probably towards the end of the summer, right?
Jesus, so after
towards
3
Labor
months, she's
Day.
gone, right, by the way,
By the
my
way.
dad doesn't like, how tall's her dad?
He's 6'3", like 6'4". He's a big guy.
Oh, yeah, but you take him there.
Yeah, you're little. Yeah,
What are you now, Dave? 6'6"?
6'6", yeah.
Got him on toast. Easy. You were probably one of the first few that branched away from the youth sports industry and went into something, I don't want to say mainstream because it's not mainstream, but it's like something completely different.
So yeah, I met a guy at Baltimore, and I met a guy at the wedding who worked for Hertz, as it was at the time. And I remember laughing about it. And I remember the movie Step Brothers with Will Ferrell, right? And
Yeah.
he's just got fired at the Catalina wine mixer, and he's talking to Dale, and he's like, "I'm going to get a job with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. They've got a great corporate system. They give you the keys to be your own boss, right?" And we were laughing about it, and I've ended up working for Hertz, which is similar, but no, it was a nice change of pace. So yeah, he was in an office in Newark. He brought me down there. I had a look around, and so I moved there right at the end of 2011. So you're looking at contract management, sales, communication, logistics. It was everything I'd been doing when I was in the office at UK Elite.
Yeah.
Just transferring that across to moving big pieces of iron. So in that side, it's a little less personal. And I found it much harder to build those relationships because it was a bit less personal in a way. So yeah, that was definitely a challenge. The Hudson Yards project was probably where I was like, all right, what am I
was that
doing here?
exactly?
So it's a huge development on top of what was the rail yard by Madison Square Garden by Penn Station. Essentially, they've built this mini city above the rail yard while it was working. So we were in on the ground floor as they were putting up the first tower. So I would be running around there, like trying to rent our equipment. We had a small job site trailer there. And I remember the moment I would be on the 5:20 train out of my town now, which was Park Ridge up in North Jersey, to get in time so I could hit these guys' offices up while they're doing their safety meetings or while they're getting ready for the day, right? So, what do you need? Anything I can help you with? That kind of thing. So this one particular morning I've got in, I'm making oatmeal. So I poured my packet of oatmeal into the cup and I got a bottle of water from the cupboard. As I'm pouring the water in, it was so cold, it turned to slush immediately. It looked like you were pouring like a soft serve ice cream on top. I was like, what am I doing? It was freezing. I had like these heaters on my feet. Like there were no bathrooms anywhere. The thought was working in Manhattan would be a lot more glamorous than it was. And it was really hard. And so, at that point, I started to think about making another change. And I did a stint with a startup. It was a luxury kitchen and bath company based out of California. And they had this beautiful showroom in Soho, and they likened themselves to like a Tesla or an Apple, like the experience you would get when going into the store. Everything worked. Like you're looking at these different faucets, you're looking at particular oven range. They had chefs in there frying eggs, and you could try one on each different baking cookies and stuff. It was bananas. We had projects like all through Manhattan, out in the Hamptons, like all these luxury, like people then spending hundreds of thousands on kitchen appliances. It was a different world.
How long were you there for then?
18 months.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, the model just didn't work in this area. Like people would come into the showroom, get the experience, and then run down the road to Best Buy and get it for 20% less. And while that's going on, my old company heard that I had started looking, and they called me straight away and made me an offer.
That was Herc. So are you into the entertainment stuff? Have you ever dealt with anyone who you're like, oh, okay, that's a bit of a face?
Not that I'm dealing with day to day, but I've certainly been in positions where it's like, oh, okay, like you're seeing the faces and the actors on set. Yeah, so we got to watch Keanu Reeves as John Wick in Times Square I think it's the third movie where he's running through Times Square in the rain.
Yeah.
Those are all our pieces of machinery with sprinklers on and making it rain in Times Square, right? So I've gone with the driver to go do some pickups, and he still had him running up and down this block with his dog. He'd get to the end, they'd put him in a golf cart, drive him back, and then he'd do it again over and over. And we just stood there watching. And then the coolest one I would say was the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. They were filming in Newark.
Yeah.
So I've called my contact who's renting the gear from us. I was like, can we come down? So the three of us went and met him in Newark. And we walked through a couple of alleyways, and they'd shut down, I think, 4 square blocks in the middle of Newark City. There's a scene, if you remember, where the Joker is in a police car, he gets hit by an ambulance, right? Yeah. And he gets out and does his little dance on the hood of the police car. At the end
of the film, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So we've seen them do that like 10 times. It was freezing Friday night in December. Because they've got all these smoke machines going, they'd have to wait all the smoke to die down and then go again. So initially, it's really cool. Like you see him come out in the red suit, and we hadn't seen any of the press, right? It hadn't been released, like what he was going to look like. So it's really spooky seeing the Joker right in front of you for the first time. And then once you've seen it a couple of times, you're like, all right, again, it was freezing.
Yeah.
So many people involved, everyone's standing around for ages. And then you'd be like, it's 30 seconds of action and it stop again. I could imagine it'd be quite boring if that's something you're doing on there.
How is raising a family in the US?
Yeah, it's difficult for sure. I think we make it more difficult. There's so much opportunity for the kids. And I wouldn't say it's like FOMO, but you want to do your best to give them every opportunity you can, right?
Yeah.
So we find ourselves running around a lot. A lot of it is based around sports, I guess, because that's how we were brought up, right? I was playing football every day.
Yeah,
so not necessarily just for football, but we find ourselves at softball, at swim team. This fall, we're going to have flag football. We'll have lacrosse and all these different sports that we're trying to get them involved in. So every night there's something. And not just that, you got like science fairs at school, right? We got entrepreneur club, we got Lego club, we got you name it. There's a club for it. And
All I've got this thing in my head now of The Simpsons, like kids come home and they're telling you they need to build a volcano or something, and you've got to try and put it together. Is there anything like that?
yeah, for sure. Yeah. We've stayed away from the volcano, but I think some of the science fair projects we've had, like starburst tasting competitions and slushy, who can get a rain freeze the quickest and things like that. Like, yeah, crazy ideas.
What makes you most proud about your time here? Because you've been here for 20 years now.
Yeah, it was 20 years in April, right? I'm proud, how I've been able to move between industries. Proud of how I left it too. Like when things were tough with Hertz as it was at the time, like I was able to call Brody, I was able to call Steve Jones, we'd have a lunch and see, if there are any opportunities there. And similar with Hertz, right? I left on good terms. And when the opportunity arose, I was able to go back. And I've been so lucky with the family that we've got in the States now. And the group of friends that we've got with yourself and the guys that we're still all in touch and we'll still meet up every so often. And it makes life so much easier. And the fact that I've still got my friends back home that I know when I go back in August, we'll all meet up, and if they're not so close, like they'll make an effort and we'll get to spend some time.
Have you recognised the importance of making an effort the older you get?
Yeah. Just in getting a bit of inspiration from listening to the podcast, right? I was able to reach out to friends from college and friends from back home that perhaps I hadn't been in touch with as much as I should, and just recognising that you have to put in some effort to keep the connections going. I don't know if it's guilt, but it's the burden that it puts on my brother. He's close by, right? So he is that immediate contact when something happens. So I just would love to be able to help him more. But
the thing is that, and the more I think about this, is you make this decision to come over here and make your life better, don't you? So I don't think anyone holds it against you. But I think the guilt or anything like that probably comes from you.
Yeah, it comes from me because I want to have that close relationship with my mum and dad and my family and my friends. And I don't like to think they would take it as a reflection of our relationship that I moved to America so I'm not near them, you know what I mean? So,
what advice would you give to anyone who's maybe anxious or nervous about making a big career change in their 30s?
I wouldn't say just do it, but I would not be afraid. As long as you put the work into researching and covering your bases, then I would go for it.
The experiences and life choices that you've made over the last, call it 20 years, even more, because you made the choice to come over here as well. What advice would you give to any of your kids about branching out and maybe taking chances to further their opportunities as they get older?
I would just want them to be happy, right? So similarly, don't be reckless, but have a go. Do your homework, do your research, and then, be happy.
Taking it. Calculated risks and all the rest of it.
Calculated risk, it was Phil.
There's Phil that on it, right?
Yeah.
You also called marriage a calculated risk, though, so I don't know how much you want to thrive on that. What's the biggest thing you miss about the UK now you're not there?
Going to West Ham.
Favourite rec sport outside of soccer?
Oh, lacrosse is hilarious.
Really?
Yeah. I have no idea what's going on, so I'm just laughing the whole time. The whistle goes, like me and a couple of the dads.
What's one thing from daily life in the US that you'll never understand?
Not being able to pump your own petrol.
That's a New
station.
Jersey thing, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but,
Which is mad because when you end up going to Pennsylvania or New York and you sat in the petrol station waiting for someone to do it.
Yeah, no, I can't get my head around that. Just let me pump it and go,
What is the key component of a roast dinner?
Yorkshire pudding.
Correct answer. Are you going to go Greasy Spoon Cafe or Diner?
I've got to say Greasy Spoon, right?
Yeah. You have.
They just don't do bacon like it.
What would be the name of your biography?
The kids call me the big fella.
The big fella? I'll take that, the big fella. And last but not least, are West Ham massive?
Everywhere we go.
I'm born and raised New Jerseyan. Family's originally from Trenton, the capital. but I grew up down the shore, not far from where they filmed Jersey Shore, as a matter of fact. Yeah, now I live up here in Hoboken.
So what's your take on New Jersey? Describe it to people who don't know.
I mean, I'll preface this with I am unapologetically biased with everything New Jersey. I think it is the best state in the union. Being serious, like, it truly is like a melting pot. And that's not only the people, but the geography. And we're sandwiched between two of the biggest cities, two of the historical cities in our country. Immigrants came through both of them, which obviously bled into our state. You go half hour west, you got Portuguese and Brazilians. Like, you feel like you're in a different country. You go up in Bergen County, there's Korean street signs, Italian and Irish and Polish ancestry. But besides that, the food, the beaches, you have the mountains, we literally have our own version of everything here within 2 hours. I love it. I think it's the perfect place to exist and for everyone to come to. I think you've probably witnessed that.
Yeah, it's half the reason I've stayed in Jersey, not gone anywhere else. So all these people who think it's the armpit of America, have got a lot to answer for, right? All they've done is basically flown into
Exactly.
What was your first experience with or interaction with people from the UK or Ireland in general?
My dad really, especially growing up, like, music was probably the biggest. Rod Stewart is his favorite artist, so always had a connection with that, like The Who, Queen. So music played a big part in my introduction to British culture. But also, believe it or not, like, my dad's huge into comedy. I grew up actually watching like Benny Hill, Mr. Bean, Faulty Towers. My own personal music tastes, Arctic Monkeys and Franz Ferdinand, Block Party, the Wombats, that stuff. I always had a fascination with it, but it was honestly, and I'm going to say the soccer that really got me, like, really just how similar we are. Like, I always thought it was like a foreign mystical place, and then you start realizing how similar we are through the sport.
When did you first travel to the UK or Ireland?
So,
what was it for?
Yeah, so 2018, I finally settled into a job. First to go to college in my family. I get out of the house finally. I'm working in the city. Finally had money. USA happened to be playing a friendly at Wembley versus England. Flew over, we went to Wembley. It was quite a battering that you guys gave us. Rooney's last ever happened, yeah, England top. But yeah, we did London, took the train up to Edinburgh, had an interesting layover on a train in Newcastle.
How was that?
So we didn't get off the train or like out of the station. We just had to wait like an hour. It was my first experience like with the Geordies. I remember this woman like coming on the train. It was just like rude guy. I don't know if he was drunk or something. I don't know. But he was like walking through the hallway of or like the middle aisle. They both stop and they're staring at each other. It's like, all right, who's a standoff? Who's gonna move? And he just starts plowing through. And she just looks at him. And I don't know 90% of what she said. The only thing I got out of it was bell end.
Well, and then you carried on up to Edinburgh.
Yeah, then we went up to Edinburgh. And so
outside of the football, what's it like when you first get into England, you get into London?
We were staying outside of Wembley. So I remember just staring out the window the whole time, just being like, wow, this is exactly what I pictured, exactly what I pictured. And then, of course, the first stop was a pub. And the worst part about it was we go in, and the pub is the biggest Philadelphia Eagles fan pub in the UK. They are, my biggest rival. Of course, the first place we go to, and I want to talk footy. I want to talk, and they're, Americans. So the Eagles, and I'm like, come on. This is all I get back in the state. Yeah, we stayed there for a little bit. I had my first fish and chips. I had mushy peas for the first time.
Disgusting.
Oh, I loved it. Really? Put a little vinegar on it. I liked it, yeah.
Rank.
Oh, it was really good. I love London. It's funny enough, like, because a lot of people on here talk about the differences between how outgoing Americans are and all that. I was always told, like, stand off a little bit, don't do it. But I didn't do that. I'd always pop into a pub somewhere or like a cafe, and you always wind up meeting someone, start explaining, what I'm there for, and just start chatting. And the next thing you know, I'm getting advice on things to see. It kind of just lowers guard and opens up different opportunities. I really don't plan things. My first thing is just meet the locals, like, see what they have to say and kind of go from there.
Okay, what's your take on UK accents?
I will admit, the further north you go on both islands, I'll say. Recently, I met a couple of people from Belfast or even like Donegal. I think there was a guy. I'm like, what? Some Yorkshire, I guess, a little rough. And then you get to Geordies, and I'm like, that Glaswegian, that's another language.
What about habits from British culture have you picked up? Maybe the humour a little bit?
I do say a lot. I don't even realize it. Like, if we're talking about like someone in basketball that I don't like, he's such a I definitely picked that up from you guys. You're talking about cursing. Like, one of my first times at Mulligan's, chatting with this woman. She was from York, I believe. I remember we're outside on smoke, and she's like talking about someone, media or whatever. And I was like, yeah, he's such a bag. She just goes, there it is. You Americans just don't know how to curse. I was like, what? She's like, get to the point. Like, bag, hole, like that. And I like thinking it was like get to the point. So you got to sing everything.
How do you think the historical connections between Jersey and the UK influence the interactions that you have? Does it help you?
Oh, absolutely. I remember when I was a kid, like I said, we had a family business. Like, I'd be 5, 6 years old. My dad always brought me into the meetings, like with salespeople and all that stuff, just to meet them and talk with them. And I remember like I was already in the history as a little kid and reading, and but he always told me, he's like, Sal, like everyone's from somewhere. Always like learn a little bit about everywhere. That's how you connect with people. And long story short, it's the end of the night. I'm a little tuned up. My phone dies. And so I was able to rent a bike, but my phone dies. I have no idea how to get back to my hostel. Again, being a nerd, I remember a few words like from watching World War II docs. Like, so I'm just going up to these people and I'm like, "Sprechen Sie English?" You know, I just think they didn't want to help me because I'm a little drunk. I'm like, my phone's dead. I just need to get back to my house. No one's willing to help me. And I just hear, I speak English, and I look, and it's this German guy. And I'm like, oh my man, here's the name of where I'm staying. Do you know how to get there? So he was like an Uber Eats type driver, like whatever delivery service. He's like, yeah, I know where that is. I'll get you as close as I can. You have to make a left. I have to make a right. And I'm like, okay, finally, this guy's helping me. So he gets on the bike, and I'm trying to file.
And you've had a few here.
A couple. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right. But it was like, this going through the city. I was like, this is amazing. This man. And like after a half hour, I literally went in the wrong direction, by the way. So that was he pointed. He's like, left, left. He screams it. I look, and there's my hostel right there. And I just turn around, thumbs up. I'm like, thank God for that guy.
Has there ever been a moment where someone's really supported you or backed you or helped you out when you've really needed a little bit of help or a little bit of a kick up the arse or a little bit of an arm around you?
I did have a life-changing event, that Berlin story. What happened before that, it was actually involved a guy from England. It was a bartender. That it changed my life. Going to Berlin changed my life. And it was just totally unexpected. And it was like, what we've been talking about, connecting with people unintentionally, hearing them out. I went to Berlin totally by accident. I was going to Rome. That was the whole plan. I wanted to fly into Frankfurt, go see something there, like a historical family thing from where my grandfather was in the war and stuff. Turns out it was cheaper to rent a car, drive to Berlin on the Autobahn than it was to just go from Frankfurt to Rome. So I went there with really no plans. I was only there for 40 hours. Drive across Germany. It was awesome. Get to Berlin. I remember a Bourdain episode. Like he went to this place in East Berlin, or what was East Berlin. So I walk all the way across the city. I get there, people vacuuming and I'm like, what the hell? So it was like 2:00. They don't open until like 6. I'm like, well, I didn't do my research. So I go in, I'm like, all right, well, let me go sit at the bar and make my plans. So I'm sit down, I sit at the bar and I go and order a drink. And sure enough, I listen to the bartender. That's not a German accent, they're English accent. I'm like, all right. Eventually I start talking to him. He's like, oh yeah, originally from Sunderland. So then eventually I'm like, all right, man, so what are you doing here? Like, you lived in London, like major advertising firm. I had a fiance, flat, I had all the money in the world. I was living my dream. So I woke up one day and I'm like, I don't like this. I was like, I want to be in the restaurant industry. All the money they had, they go, what was the restaurant? Long story short, it fails. So he goes, you know what? I already did this. Let's go to Berlin. He sells his flat, wakes up with the girl. He comes here. He's like, I want door to door, every bar, restaurant. He's like, I just want someone, you don't even have to pay me. I just want to learn how to run a restaurant. I'll do whatever odd job, but just show me how to run a restaurant. So I look at him and I'm like, oh, dude, that's incredible. So now, like, worked your way up and now you're bartending and, like, man, I run this place. What? I'm like, he's like, do you have a reservation? I'm like, no. He goes, hold on. He gets me a reservation for the restaurant. Listening to his whole story, I go and I have food. And I remember saying goodbye to him and thanking him for, like, helping me out and all this. Came home from that trip, like, listening to him and, like, sharing our stories. I came in, I was so miserable at work. Hated my job. I'd just come up to the city. Had no idea what I was doing. I don't afford rent. I'm going to let my parents down. Man, this was the dream. And I just went in. I started looking at jobs. And a month later, now I'm where I'm at now. It was that one dude. Adam, I think was his name.
Adam from Sunderland.
Yeah. There he goes.
I can almost guarantee he doesn't listen to this, Sal, but if he does...
Yeah, I hope so. I did follow... We did on Instagram, and he runs a place in Portugal now.
What does the future hold for Sal Eppolito?
I'd like to travel more, obviously, as I can. Be with my family. They're getting older. And just be happy.
First one. What place in the UK do you feel most at home?
London.
Interesting. Best thing you've eaten in the UK?
Fish and chips at that pub I was telling you about, the green whatever, the Eagles bar.
What's your favourite dinosaur?
Ooh, I mean, obviously T-Rex, but I like Pachycephalosaurus.
Nerd. What did you want to be when you were a kid?
A teacher.
Most used condiment?
Mayo. Ranch is almost there, but I mayo more.
What's one fact that not many people would know about you?
Ooh, play guitar? Did you know that?
I didn't know that, to be fair. Are you any good?
I was.
Check the fingers after you've got callus.
The callus is
the callus
that's the thing.
Yeah, shag. Is it Taylor ham or is it pork roll?
It is pork roll.
That's bollocks. It's Taylor ham.
It's from Trenton. That's where my family's from. My great-grandma used to work at the factory.
You're in North Jersey now. It's Taylor ham.
I came on a vacation to visit my girlfriend back then. My high school sweetheart for about 7 years. Came to visit her for 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks ended up turning into what is it now? About 25 years, 26 years. Elaborate on that. I mean, I had offers to college. I had about 2 scholarship offers. I think back then, it was Howard University and Wright State, but I wasn't into school and never wanted to go to school. The man above put somebody in my life to attract me to America, I should say. As I'm a strong believer in now that everybody comes in life for a reason and some for a season.
It's true. She was definitely only for a season, though.
Yeah, she was only for a season. She was definitely for a season. 7 seasons, though.
7 seasons, yeah. When you first get here, what sort of stuff's crazy? Like when you get here, like, oh, okay, work it.
No, Gerald, I hope not, because America is the land of laws and rules and regulations back then. So, like example, I give you an example. I went to the corner store in Brooklyn. Yourself as an Englishman, Guinness is a big drink in Jamaica.
Yeah.
And I went in and bought a bottle of Guinness. And it's a big drink back home in Jamaica. And we could drink it anywhere. So I buy a bottle, I walk out the store, I'm walking on the block, and I'm drinking, and everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, why is everybody looking at me like this? And the cops pulled me over, walking. They stopped, called me in, and they looked at me like, what's wrong with you? I said, what happened? They said, you have alcohol in your hand. I said, yeah, just like Guinness. And they said, oh, you're not from here? I said, no, officer, I'm from Jamaica. I said, listen, up here you can't walk on the street and drink like back where you come from. I said, oh my Lord, I did not know. So I learned quickly that in America, things are proper. And in Jamaica, everybody's happy and everybody's looking to have a grand joy for everything. Humorous, outgoing. Everybody is more friendly. It's just like one big party most of the time, when I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, people do work hard. Education has high standards in Jamaica because we're from the British system, as you know. So we're not be taken for jokes, but we have a nice time with everything, basically. Playing football is a nice time. Going to school is a nice time. It's a grand atmosphere. Culturally, it's one hand watches the other. People try to help each other.
Yeah.
If somebody is short of something, people aren't afraid to just be a good citizen to their fellow neighbors. Up here, it's a little different. Somebody is broken down, people hesitate to stop. Back in Jamaica, if you're broken down, people automatically stop on the road and try and help you. So I learned quickly that when you're up here, you got to figure out things on your own, and you're in survival mode 24/7. I come from a family they're both educators. My mother was a teacher, my father was a teacher, and he was also a principal. And he went to Oxford University. So they spent that time in England, I want to say around 10, 15 years. My father has a lot of English beliefs, and he went to finishing school and all that stuff. So I was a strong believer in education. So I grew up in a middle class family. I was better off than a lot of people in Jamaica, but I wouldn't say upper class, but I wasn't short of anything. My father would not give you something just for giving sake. Unless you need it, it's a necessity, you would not give it to you. My mother, on the other hand, now, like if we're coming home from school, she'll stop and buy 2 of your favorite things. Like she'll buy 2 beef patties and a dessert or a Danish or pastry. But my father would pick me up. My father would buy 1 patty, 1 drink. And I said, Daddy, but I want 2. Or no, you don't need it. You have food at home waiting for you. Everything was calculated. Everything was detailed. So I would go to work, get home from 7 to 7, get home 7 o'clock, try to catch up on sleep. No matter how you sleep after working the night shift, it's still not enough.
Never enough.
Never enough. Went to practice in the evenings at Union County College. Union County College was a successful program, especially back then. So that's how I started coaching. And one thing led to the other. The head coach started a business, a restaurant and a laundromat business, and he was never around. You have to be hands-on with the business to make sure everything is running right. So I was the only coach. I ended up coaching the team. One thing led to the other. I said, wait, this is not so bad after all. Then my high school coach from Jamaica, Coach Hugh McCarthy, who used to come up every summer, I got him to help me with the college team. That is how coaching really kicked off. So number one thing I learned from Coach Hugh is, and I always believed in this, no one is bigger than the show, no one is bigger than the team. It's one thing I would always carry during my coaching career. So when I just got the job, I was strong believer and being firm, and we would call it 3, fun, firm, and fair. Myself as a player, I got suspended. I was the goalkeeper, one of the main players on the team, and it didn't matter who it was, Gary. If you didn't do what was supposed to be done, you will be suspended. So
fun, firm, and fair.
I've learned in life, doors open and doors get closed. Doors have opened for me that I never expected to be in certain situations or positions, I should say. What is to be will be. So the honesty. Usually, Gary, 90% of people, they don't like to hear it up front, but in the long run, they appreciate the honesty.
You ever feel like a bit of a hypocrite with your players, though, when it came to things like fitness? Because I know for a fact that when you played for Keene, you would hide in the woods during team runs.
And I in the woods? Yeah.
I've heard that from a few people. You would hide in the woods during 2-mile runs or something, and you'd pop out at the end and act like you were tired.
Yeah, good old Keene was more like 10 miles in the woods. Oh, yes. We find a shortcut way and come out and like we're dead tired and or wait until the guys to come back around. But the teammates knew as well. So that was the funny part about it. Because I'm a Jamaican and Jamaica was not going to get that part done, the fitness part. You know, I was a goalkeeper.
So anyone who's listening, any of the lads who are listening then who played for you and you give them shit for slacking off on the fitness, you want to try and justify it to them now, just as a sort of clear the air kind of thing, or are you just going to stick to your guns?
You have to stick to the guns. You always try to be one step or two steps ahead of them. Gary, you know that somewhere along the line, somebody pulled a fast one and they got away with it. Because we're not going to catch everything. They got to be forward thinking and 2 steps ahead.
So you're saying fair play to the lads who got away with it?
Yeah, man, fair play to them.
Because they worked the system.
They worked the system, yeah.
Did you get imposter syndrome? I don't belong here.
Yeah, when I just got there, I was scared. But you know, I think that's more of the unknown. You're scared of the unknown.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, actually, because it keeps you on the P's and Q's. It forces you to think ahead and stuff. But yes, I was scared.
Yeah.
The department was different. But, you know, got my head down. I'm in the staff meeting and I'm like, what is going on?
You just realise, don't you, that stuff that you're just like, all right, we'll figure it out. Everyone else complains about. I see that all the time.
Yeah, you see it all the time. Somebody asked me, Peter, anything? Why you look like that? I said, because everybody's complaining and moaning. We have more than enough here. Let's figure it out.
I think just because people have like that sense of entitlement that they've had it.
And people want it their way. It's not always going to be your way.
Exactly. How do you balance that family life? You work a lot, you're out your long hours, you're very committed to your program and everything else. And you're sitting in Florida now, but you're finally down in Florida, but your family moved down there, 18 months ago?
It's like you give an unconditional part of yourself and you just keep going and going. What changed my whole outlook on the whole thing here was COVID, because when we were at Keene, it was almost away from like 2 years, a year and a half, almost. We were remote, and I was home and with my kids and doing online school, and I have to monitor that and spending so much time. You go outside and play with them. And I was like, wow, if it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff right now. Then people were dying, and you're like, my whole outlook changed on work-life balance after that. Because you get so consumed with the job and you want to win and do well. Sometimes you spend 13 hours doing something that you could do in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes you look at a player 4 or 5 times and you don't need to look at the player 4 or 5 times. I've realized that and I changed my whole outlook on the whole thing. And it made me realize, I have a good wife. It takes a certain type of wife to be with a coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got to understand what's going on. I'm lucky. And I'm grateful because she has been there through the early part and in the early parts of my career, I was bad. The job was everything, beginning and the end. Yeah. But maybe if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be where I am now. So, yeah, I regret doing what I did.
What do you think your biggest achievement or achievements have been in coaching?
I would say life lessons taught through the game. Yes, coaching, you want to win and everything. That's just a bonus, championship. But sports on a whole, we coach soccer, football as we call it. My number one thing about coaching is teaching life lessons through the game, through the sport. Because you're teaching future men, future fathers, future mothers and daughters on the women's side now. So when you get a student or a student athlete, whatever you want to call it, they come in one way, and if they leave the same way, then I haven't done my job. They come in one way and leave a different way for the better. That's a big achievement. I've had some players who I never expected to graduate, Gary. I've said to myself, yeah, you know what, he's not going to last after a year. He's not going to make it past a semester. They graduated and they're doing very well. So we're very well for themselves. Every time I get a promotion, they call me back. And they say, Coach, you know what, I got promoted, such and such and such and such. And to me, that is the beauty about coaching and the success about coaching. That's been the biggest success. Yes, you don't stay in touch with all the players, but there are some that will never leave you. And I have quite a few that I keep in touch with.
It's good. It's a proper answer. I got some quick fire questions for you. First question. What's one thing you miss from Jamaica outside of your family?
Got a lot to miss in Jamaica, Gary. One thing that stood out, just the peace of mind. Meaning, in Jamaica, you can just sit down and chill, enjoy the weather, enjoy some good food, and not think about what's the next move. You can just go out and enjoy yourself. You don't have to spend money to enjoy yourself in Jamaica.
What actor would play you in a movie?
That's a tough one. Who's an unpredictable actor or character in a movie?
I'm thinking Chris Tucker.
Chris Tucker?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Tucker, that clown. Yeah.
If you could eat one thing for the rest of your life and never get bored, what would it be?
A good plate of oxtail and rice and peas from Ding Dong.
Solid answer.
Since I can remember, I had a great aunt, Auntie Phyllis is what we called her. And it was my grandmother's brother's wife. And he met her when he was over in England in the war. And they moved back here. and were married for a very, very long time. And she was always around there. She was very good friends with my grandmother. They were very, very close. And she was very, very close with my mother, too, because I didn't learn until later on. She moved here and never went back home.
Oh, wow.
She really couldn't. Yeah. So her family couldn't come here. She couldn't go there. She came here and stayed here for the long haul. So, yeah, she was always around. But I mean, I'm also like a young memory. I think we lost her. I was probably around 11.
Okay.
So she was the first person who had an English accent, and there was always tea around. I'm going to mention tea a lot. Yeah, she just always, she had I don't want to say Mary Poppins, but that was like the thing you compared her to when I was your age. Very calming presence.
She wore like big flowy
She
dresses,
did.
big
She
puffy
flew
out
in
dresses, and she came in on
flew in on an umbrella.
Was there ever anything in England where you're like,
London, Piccadilly Circus. That I was always, is that what it's called?
Really?
Yeah, well, I was just always told, oh, it's the Times Square of
smaller scale?
Yeah, but there were some double deckers driving around, and I saw like a red telephone booth, so that made it very British as well. None of them worked. I went in every single one. Didn't take my money. I mean, obviously, London was always the place to see, and it was actually the first place I ever traveled overseas when I was 20.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, we probably saw half of what we should have because we were just young and stupid and boozing. Really, yeah.
Yeah. So, what was your first impression when you got there? When you first get to England?
Wow, like it's just like the movies and just like TV. Like there were double decker buses everywhere. There was the tube. There were accents everywhere and pubs everywhere, which is super nice. And then yeah, Buckingham Palace, like you said, and the guards and things like that.
Yeah.
It didn't disappoint.
Obviously, driving on the other side of the road is an obvious
I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
Why is that?
Oh, Kelly and I had a horrible experience in Harlow.
Go on.
I drove. She allowed me to drive. Didn't go well. It did well. Harlow was full of roundabouts. So that just throws a whole wrench in it. I think there's a huge circle that she just screamed the entire way around because I didn't know counterclockwise, clockwise. Where do I exit? Oh, it's horrible. So that was it. I'm not allowed to drive there. Like when I traveled to Cambridge and when I went to Bayou and Wigan, that's where it's just different. Like it's not touristy. Like you got to see like the small town pubs and that stuff I like. London's it's tough. It's kind of like a New York with an accent.
You were very close to going to Jumping Jacks in Wigan as well, weren't you? That night after our wedding.
Yes.
I don't know how lucky. You know what? I don't know if it's a lucky thing that you didn't go or if it's an unfortunate thing that you didn't go.
I'm going to say lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have ended in tears.
What's it like having a roommate like that? And what do you pick up straight off the bat?
Kelly traveled a lot. Her nan and granddad took her tons of places, and I didn't. So that was always a lot of fun. The nights where we were in, and she was telling stories where, she went down the Nile in Egypt with her grandparents or things like that.
Yeah.
You don't hear my friends growing up. You didn't hear stories like that. So having that at my fingertips was always a lot of fun. And because we were so close and because those stories came from somebody that I knew and it wasn't like somebody on TV, you kind of sit back and like, all right, I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
Like I can do that.
Yeah.
And I watched her do it. And it gave me, like I said, like a sense of confidence that I will always remember. And then just watching her, watching the struggles, like, she's very close to her family, just seeing how she kept in touch with them. And it made me be like, all right, maybe I should call. I think she talked to her mom more than I did sometimes. Like, and it's just, I don't know. It was different in that watching somebody go through something so challenging and different and nobody I had known before that did that.
Yeah.
Was very eye-opening. I think for me, I had to regulate my tea intake because it became a thing. Yeah. I would have a cup every time she had one.
Which isn't normal.
No. And then I would wonder why I can't sleep at night. It's true. And then I think somebody at my job at the time, she was, well, are you having tea with Kelly? And I'm like, yeah. And she was, when's your last cup? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I take one up to bed. And she's like, well, that's why you're not sleeping. Yeah. So yes, that was something that was very interesting and something that I had to start saying no half the time. Well, I mean, I don't understand the rhyming thing. Though I don't know. It's like she'll say, have you heard from this person? Not a bird. Like, it's some sort of like slang.
Oh, like
rhyming.
Yeah, not a dicky bird.
Not a dicky bird. You don't get it. In fact, her mom bought me like a book of rhymes that I don't get. And she would say, and I don't know what you're saying. Is that not a thing by you? And then there's another instance that I remember where it just, when you say lost in translation, there was this place called The Whiskey, I think. And it was in the Meadowlands, which is right by where I grew up and where Kelly actually lived when she first moved here. And it was like a club for 5 p.m. Like you would go, all the windows are not, oh yeah. And there was like dance music, buckets of beer. And I remember I dragged Kelly out to it, and there was just a bunch of people that I grew up with there. And there was dancing, and somebody was dancing ridiculously. And I won't say who it is, but I know who it is. And we still laugh at it. And the music was loud, and Kelly said to me, she said, oh, they look like a right tit. And I'm like, what's wrong with your tit? I didn't know. And I'll forever. And she just said it again. And I'm like, why does her tit hurt? And what did you want me to do about it?
Any particular words that you're now a fan of?
I mean, I really like using the word because it means something completely different here. And I feel like because I know you guys, I can get away with it and I can still have the severity of it in the US. It means something so much stronger and probably something I would never use. But now I use it because it just seems to be part of my vocabulary.
So you can just blame us. Well,
It's something I feel all the time. I feel like calling somebody that every day. Until I met you guys.
At what point did you start noticing that your mental health was declining a little bit?
I was probably 18. Usually things like that happen in transitional time. So high school was over, college was happening. I commuted to school. I had a lot of friends that were leaving, so I saw a lot of people going. I worked for years at a restaurant. I had some stressful things happening around work at that time. And then coming to terms with my sexuality and all of that stuff came to a head all at once.
Was that a problem for you growing up in Rutherford or just in general?
I think in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something I always knew. I always knew I was gay from what I can remember. But you just kind of push that away. But come 18, you're kind of like, okay, I can't hide from this. Like,
Yeah,
it's just kind of like, right, this isn't going away. This isn't a phase.
Yeah.
As horrible as that sounds. So it's kind of like, how do I move forward? Again, 20 years in psychology has changed a lot. But it revealed itself in that way. I think physically, that's what was the big thing that I think people noticed was I just stopped eating. Like I couldn't get anything in. Like I just had no appetite.
Oh, wow.
For all those years, for lack of a better term, was fragile. So any kind of change really threw me for a loop. When I got my second job, I had a meltdown.
Really?
And which is just horrible because you have to start with this new job. You have to show your best face. Meanwhile, usually when somebody gets the news that they got a new job, it's like the happiest day. And for me, I was like, oh, what the am I going to do? I have more energy to do things that are healthier. Like I have this amazing relationship. I've never had a relationship before. I'm with Santi now for 2.5 years. I just have all this energy. Before my alarm would go off, and by the time I got out of the shower, I felt like I climbed a mountain. And then all right, well, now I got to go to work.
Yeah.
I don't feel that anymore. And then the workday would end. It'd be 5 p.m. and I would go home and crawl into bed because you're just spent. But when the lows were there, that was what was happening. But now, I've been episode free, I think, for about 4 years now, and I just have all this energy. Now I have or just time. Like I've gone back to not like school certificate courses, trying to figure out, what my next step in my career is. I bought a home. There's just so many things that are happening now. Some of the things that I've been able to do is have tough conversations with family and friends that, again, I was too fragile. I think it's always good to, continuously meet new people, to surround yourself with people that are different than you because that's how you learn. I think a lot of the places that I traveled to, I was really lucky because I got to go there with people that were from there. Like I went to England with you guys. I went to South America with Santi. In Poland, I have like a whole family there, people that I work with. That's the best way to see country and just seeing how other people live, right down to like how far their commute is. Things are different. Things are weird. You never want to judge. You always want to take in. And I think that's the biggest thing. That's what I do. I just kind of, even if I'm silently judging, like I take it home and I'm like, oh, all right, that's interesting because honestly, there's a lot of weird things that we do here. So I'm just kind of like,
that's cool. Thanks so much for your time, mate. I really appreciate it. You did good, mate. You did good.
Yes.
Before you go, I do have a number of quick fire questions for you. Question 1. Do you believe in ghosts?
Yes.
Are you a washer or a dryer? Not a sexual term.
I don't know what that is.
Do you wash the dishes or do you dry the dishes?
I'm going to get killed for that one.
What's your favourite UK dessert?
Karen's trifle. Ellie's mom's trifle.
Okay, fair enough. What's one thing that they have in the UK that would 100% work in the US?
Cadbury. That's an easy one, but it's true. Chip shop.
Up a chippy.
Yep, that would do well here.
Best drunk purchase.
I mean, I thought it was cool until I tried it on. I bought like a poncho. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
ASOS. Do you remember ASOS?
Yeah.
I think they're still here.
Yes.
I got drunk and thought I was somebody else. And then I bought a lot of ridiculous clothes and then had a fashion show. So yeah, that was, yeah. Well, that included a poncho.
The answer is probably to this the same thing. But worst drunk purchase.
I guess the poncho. Yeah.
Hardest English accent to understand.
I think your dad, because of the accent, and he's a low talker. And then I really struggle with Scottish.
One English thing that you'll never understand.
How weird you people are with your tea. Like somebody could get my coffee order wrong and I'd be like, oh, okay, this is fine. I won't make tea for any of you because I'm afraid I'll get a cup thrown at me. Very serious.
And the last question.
Yes.
Who's playing you in a movie?
Melissa McCarthy.
Fantastic answer.
Yeah.
Probably true as well.
I know, listen.
Inspire as well, love. Steve, thanks so much, mate. It's been brilliant. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you or someone you know has a story to share, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us via our socials or visit www.crossingthepondpodcast.com to get in touch. Please be sure to subscribe, like, or leave a comment if you can. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Across Pond Podcasting.